Anyway, welcome, Sarah. First of all, hello. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Well, first, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Sarah Ansaha. Um, I live in Woodhill. I'm actually from London, and I've lived here for 13 years.
Wow, very nice. Sarah, I thank you so much for doing this. Again,
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited that, first of all, I'm seeing you because I haven't seen you or just about any humans in so long, like in real life. So that's fantastic. And then you've been so crazy busy and I am there's no excuse. I think that, Corona is bringing us closer together and pulling us apart, but bringing us closer together in my eyes. So I'm using this to reconnect to everyone. Before we get any further, I would like to ask, where did you grow up?
I grew up in London.
In London. Okay. And your family, they came over during the war? Were they originally there in London?
So my mother's parents came over just before the war.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was born in Vienna, and just after Anschluss, she and my grandfather, who came from Czechoslovakia, they escaped to London. And my father grew up in South Africa, and
Wow.
he then moved to England, born in London.
All right. Very nice. I mean, I'm like the quintessential person who's grown up in the States. I'm American and I just love the British accent. We're just suckers for it. I know myself personally. I just absolutely love it. Whereas, God bless him, my husband cannot understand an English accent for the life of him. He always,
Seriously?
yeah, seriously, he always goes, what did he say? What did she say? Like it just doesn't. And then if you have like a Manchester accent, forget it. It's like speaking Chinese to him.
You think Manchester's bad? You go further north,
Yeah,
then you go to Newcastle, you go to Scotland,
yeah.
and it's even stronger.
Amazing. Well, how long ago did you make Aliyah? You said 13.
13 years ago.
Wow. And you're a mother of three?
Yep, 3 boys.
Three boys. So you are very, very busy, I'm sure, just with your boys and family life. We won't go into it in detail, but I do happen to say I wanted to just say your husband is the best craftsman in terms of like wood that I have ever met. I'm like a big fan of like furniture, wood furniture, old furniture. I love personally remaking things, and I joke that if anything sits still long enough, I'll paint it.
I
So
remember you always used to.
yeah, I'm like always repainting stuff or doing
Yeah,
stuff, taking wood and turning it into this or turning it into that. But he is truly, truly a master craftsman, and his work is just phenomenal. But we're not talking about him today. We're talking about you. So, but I just had to like include that there because I'm a big fan of it.
definitely.
I'm a big fan of it. Now, when you made Aliyah, what did you start? Did you start working right away? Were you commuter working? Telecommuting? What were you doing when you?
Yeah, so before, before we made Aliyah, we started, well, a few years before, we started an online store selling furniture, design products. Some of them were Schmoyles, some of them were other designers from the UK, Europe, also Israel. But shortly after we came, with the financial crash in the UK, the pound also kind of crashed against shekels. There was a few years of challenging years, you could say.
Yeah.
until I realized eventually that firstly I needed to do something else, and also I wanted to go back to writing, which is my first love.
Going back to writing, you said?
Yeah, going back to writing.
I'm going to ask you to move either a little closer, move your microphone a little closer to you. You are just naturally so soft-spoken.
I know. Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit better, yeah. So,
okay.
You're not a loud American. You're soft-spoken British person. So anyway, so that's what you started doing. And how did you find besides work and doing all of that, the transition to making Aliyah, how was that for you and your family? The challenging and
so I think the challenging was really because we came but just before the crash, and we had this plan, and we were going to come and run our business and so on and so forth. And also, when I came, I was pregnant. Mm-hmm. So coming, and then the challenge then with the crash, just within 6 months. So that wasn't kind of planned. So it wasn't challenging so much being in Israel per se, but it was everything that went with it.
Everything that went with it. Okay. I totally hear you. So after you made Aliyah, and now you recently, when I say recently, I mean like the last 4 years, if that's correct, you've been working, is it 4 years at the museum?
Just over 3 years, yeah.
3 years, okay. So, and you have been posting, not weekly, but very frequently. You would meet these amazing travelers in this tiny little museum. I apologize in that I never really heard of your museum before you started writing about it. And then I was like, oh, it sounds like a really interesting place. And it's so interesting that you get so many visitors there. So first of all, how did you end up doing that? Where was the transition from? Was there a transition, or you took a pause and then you went to the museum? How did you land there? Tell me.
Okay. So it came to a point working online. I loved writing about design, but I'm not a salesperson, to be honest. And all that side of things, it came to a point that with all the other challenges that went with it, like, you know what? It's time for a change.
Yeah.
I'm going back to writing.
Yeah.
When we were in London still, I started a novel. This was quite some years ago. And one of the characters in the novel is Adoni, so from Aden. The novel got halfway, then obviously we made Aliyah, a little baby to look after, and then obviously all the other challenges.
Yeah.
The novel got put aside, and in 2016, that was the point at which I'm picking this novel back up, and I read through the halfway mark, to where I'd got to halfway through this novel, and I thought, this has still got potential. I'm going back to this. I'm doing this. And so I was speaking to a friend who's a writer. She's from the States. And I was telling her about the novel that I'm picking up again, that I started a while back. And she asked me what it was about. I explained to her, and then I said to her, telling her this, that, and the other. It takes place in London. One of the characters in it is Adoni. And she goes, what's Adoni? And I was like, you've never heard of the Adoni community? And she was like, no. And I suddenly realized I'd left a big chunk out, that I hadn't explained where this one particular character had come from. Growing up in London, we grew up with the Adoni community. So you know it like you'd know any other community, and the Moroccan community.
You're saying Adli?
Adoni. From Aden.
Oh, Adli. Okay, gotcha.
No.
No?
No. Aden.
Aden. So Aden.
Aden.
Okay.
Aden. Okay.
Aden. All right.
Okay. So I realized I had to go back and explain what does it mean to be ugly? What is the history of the community? I was in Israel. I wasn't going back to London for a while, and I needed to do some research really on the more on the history side, just to give a little bit of background. I discovered that in Tel Aviv there was a museum that tells the history of the Yazidi community. So on the 1st of November 2016, I walked through the doors of the museum to do research for this novel. I got friendly with the guy working there. He was really helpful. I had different questions regarding historical details, regarding just other little specific questions, traditions and so forth. So we kept in touch, and every time I had a question, I'd contact him, he'd help me. About 6 months later, in May 2017, other things happened in between, but I went to see him, and he said to me, I've got a little bit of sad news. I'm going to be leaving the museum. And then he said to me, would you like to take over from me? And so that is how I started there. And then I met his bosses, who are now my bosses, Danny and Uriel, who I mentioned. Actually, I'm really up a bit, but so, and they offered me the job, and I didn't want to take it, but I didn't know whether I'd be up for it. I thought, you know what? I'll give it a try. Let's see how this goes. And basically from day one, I loved it, and it was challenging, and it was interesting, and it was enriching, and as you sort of like read on Facebook, I started meeting people from the community. So basically, I should explain to you. I should stop and I should explain to you a little bit what Aden is.
Yeah.
So Aden today is part of Yemen. It's part of Yemen.
Yeah.
From 1839 to 1967, Aden was a British colony. It's a port city on the tip of Yemen. So for that time, for over 100 years, it was a British colony, so it was like a different country, something like Gibraltar or Hong Kong. Okay. And there's a Jewish community who lived in Aden. So the history is very unique because you have this blend of cultures, because it's on the tip of Yemen, which was called Southern Arabia back in the 1830s. You have the British influence. It's across the way from Africa. It's on the trade route to India. And the community itself, when the British arrived, was small. It was only about 250 people. Oh, wow. Back in the 11th and 12th century, it was a big, prominent Jewish community. Over the years, it declined. And then when it became a British colony, the community grew again. And people started coming from surrounding areas, firstly because of job prospects, but also because it was a British colony. There was no persecution. So Jewish community had the same rights as every other community living there. So a lot of people came from surrounding areas, from Yemen, from Iraq, from India. You have some people who came from Persia. You have Iraq. So you have a few different origins, people who came to make this one community. The community has a blend of customs. So it makes it really fascinating because the museum is not just the history of a small little community. but it's almost a microcosm of Jewish history. So going there, museum, I'd meet people who came from Aden, but their background maybe they had one grandparent who came from Yemen or connections with India, Iraq. But not only that, from Aden, some of the community then moved to other places in the area. So we also had an Adni community in Asmara in Eritrea, which at the time was an Italian colony. You had an Adni community for a time in Djibouti, in Port Said in Egypt. So you have this amazing blend and a whole different perspective on Jewish communities and on Jewish history. So it's just enriching and eye-opening, and I learned so much from it. And that's how some of the stories began on Facebook. But it wasn't just community, but also tourists.
Yeah, so the tourists are like a completely different thing, and that's beautiful. And you're going to talk about that. But I just have to interrupt you for a second to say,
sure.
How amazing is this? And this is like from Shemaim. You're like researching. You go into the museum and you're like, oh, like, and you chat with this guy, and he's very helpful. You form a relationship, a friendship, and then he goes, "Hey, I'm leaving. Do you want my job?"
Yeah.
It's like that in itself is like from a book. That's like from a novel, from like a chick novel. Like it doesn't happen in real life, and that's amazing. So now tell me, you're going to say you started saying something about the tourists that come to visit.
Yeah. So as well as members of Jewish community, not just in Aden, in Yemen, but the whole Mizrahi world and indeed the whole world. You also have a lot of tourists, or we did, coming in as well from all over the world, because it's in the Veit Tzedek, the museum, not far from the beach. So you've got a lot of people who just walking past and peep their head through the door out of curiosity, no clue what they're coming into, and walking. And it led to some incredible exchanges with German tourists, people from the Far East, you name it, all sorts of places.
Yeah, I remember reading a couple of your posts, people from Germany and like you said, the Far East, and I was just like blown away. First of all, you are a natural storyteller. Your short little posts, which by Facebook standards are not short. And I will fully admit that when I click on someone's thing and that post is just going and going and going, you lost me. Like you have lost me. I read articles. I love to read. I'm a big reader. Has nothing to do with that. But it's just like the Megillah that's on there. Most of the time, it doesn't hold me. I judge, unfortunately, like just by the length. But I never did that with your post because I was hooked from the first couple of lines that you wrote. I'm not kidding. You literally would start writing, and I'd be like, oh, and I just keep reading. Like it never fazed me that it was like a longer post than most. And so I just have to say, you just are a natural storyteller, and so that brings. So first of all, were you able to get the information that you needed research-wise for your novel? I assume you were.
Yeah.
Okay, because that would not have been good if you couldn't
get. The funny thing is,
if you couldn't get the information.
The funny thing is, totally. I went in there to be able to answer the question, what does it mean to be Adani? Yeah. And basically, every day at the museum, this is the question I answer. Because you have people coming in who are tourists, first of all, never heard of Aden, where is Aden? You have Israelis coming in and going, what's Adani? Isn't it Temani? Like, isn't it Yemenite? Mm-hmm. Like, no, it's not. It's its own community. Yeah. It's got its own history. So yeah, the question I went in to answer is the question I basically answer now every day.
Wow. So, I mean, look, I've heard of the Port of Aden. First of all, it's very similar to my daughter's name. So I was always, when I heard it and the name stuck with me. And then I still have these images of, I don't remember how long ago there was a U.S. ship that was attacked and in the port of Aden, and there was like this big hole, like a Navy ship, because it's a port city. And there was like this big incident. It maybe didn't register because you're English. I think it was even before I made Aliyah, so it was that means more than 15 years ago. But I do remember that. But I always also assumed that it was just Yemen. I didn't realize that there was a distinction and that there was a separate it was colonized by Britain for a while, and it had its own separate identity, even like predating that. So it's very interesting to find out. So that brings us to tell me about your book, like your story. What's going on with it?
Okay. So the novel is almost ready to go, but it's sitting on the side because what then happened was lockdown comes. So back in March, April.
Yeah.
And suddenly we had to close the museum.
Yeah.
And the beginning, I think like everyone, I thought, okay, we'll close for a couple of weeks. Let's all blow over, then I'll go back. And after a couple of weeks, I realized this is going to take a little while.
Yeah.
And now what? When are we going to be able to reopen? And I floundered for a little while, feeling, what do I do? And for a long while, actually, since actually shortly after I started writing those stories down and sharing a lot of them. People often say, you should write a book, you should listen to a book. And I'd had that idea for a while, but it was always someday. I was busy with the novel, I was busy with work, I was busy with this, I was busy with that. And someday came in April 2020.
Yeah.
And I thought, now's the time. And I took all those notes, of some of the stories I put on Facebook, but as well as that, I had notes. I put in longhand and notebooks, notes I put on like docs, all over the place. And I spent a couple of weeks just putting everything together, and I had over 40,000 words.
Wow.
So I then took that raw material and spent these last few months looking at it, working it. So it was really more of a rewrite and edit, choosing which stories would stay in, which won't. Some of them that were on Facebook aren't in there. Some that I've never written about are in this book.
Yeah.
And it was a little experiment. It started off as a little experiment. Let's see what happens. 3 months later, we opened the museum again on the 1st of June. And then September, we shut again for the second lockdown. And we're still closed in the meantime.
Yeah.
So this really became my lockdown project. And I decided when we locked down again in September that I wasn't going to flounder. I was going to carry on with the project that I've been working on constantly. And I was going to look at this as a writer's retreat and not a lockdown. So it's been an amazing project to work on, to revisit these stories. And then I had a few other stories as well that didn't quite fit in the theme. So I made a separate little free book that I've just given away on both on Facebook and giving that away. And then the actual book is done and all being well, going to launch next week.
Wow.
The actual book.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we're going to time this podcast to release at the same time, but that is fantastic. I can't wait to read it, and you'll give me all the information, and I'll post it there. I personally am looking forward to buying it and reading it because I truly, truly enjoyed so much reading the stories, these real life accounts that were so interesting. Now, I know that obviously when you're dealing with foreigners, they're not coming from an English speaking country. For the most part, a lot of people around the world speak some level, amount of English. Probably, if they're not Jewish, more likely English than Hebrew. But how is your Hebrew? Like when you were speaking with this guy that was working there, were you speaking to him in English or were you guys speaking in Hebrew?
Both. We spoke in both English and Hebrew. His English is pretty good, yeah. So we speak a lot in English, but a lot of the visitors who come in don't speak English at all. I have a lot of, say, the old timers, like the old generation who came from Yemen. They speak Arabic, they speak Hebrew, they don't speak English.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn.
Wow. And how has that been for you? Because I mean, I personally still struggle with the language day to day because, I'm working in English all the time. So it's very, I don't, it's not sink or swim for me.
Yeah.
You really had to
think. My problem as well, because until that point, I was working from home.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And you managed, okay. I'm looking for inspiration. Yeah. All right. Well, Kol Hakavod. What do you think from your previous experience, your previous career, pre-making Aliyah, sort of helped you in the Sarah that has moved and made Aliyah to Israel and started working here in this museum and working here? What talents do you think that you brought that it helped you to succeed in the museum? Because you said you're not a salesperson. I don't think I'm a salesperson too, even though some people say that I am.
The writing's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think the writing side of it's helped because for our online store, I would write blog posts, I would write descriptions. So I carried on then for the museum.
Oh, nice.
Writing the Facebook posts for them. So in that sense, being able to learn new things. I don't have a formal training in design like my husband. So writing about design, I had to learn a lot about design and architecture, do a lot of reading up, learn on the go. So I think as well, that helped me to learn on the go, to learn about people, to listen to them, to hear their stories, and to learn from it.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, what you clearly are someone who continue to pursue your dreams. Sometimes people think, they put things on the back burner, and then when they revisit it, they feel like, oh, I was just shame, I didn't do it. But I actually think it's the opposite. Your dream is your dream, and you started this. As you said, you're originally a writer, and you are now coming back to it, and it's Sarah Writer 2.0. And I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And what advice do you think you could give to anyone who is feeling a little bit, I don't know, disenchanted with having, given up their dream or put their dream on hold? Because I see this vitality in you that, because it's like, you're like, wow, I'm doing this again and I love it.
I think the thing is to learn that the route to where you want to get to sometimes is a little bit, you zigzag a little bit. I never even would have dreamt of going to work in a museum, and I love it. And
Yeah.
that prompts the whole other stories and the whole other book. So I think be open to different things. That sometimes those you open a door and it opens a new opportunity. When I picked up the book in November 2016, I thought I'm going back to writing. I'm going to become a writer, full time. And you realize you don't just write it in a few months and that's it. These things take time. There's rewriting and there's rewriting and there's rewriting and there's more editing and there's honing your skill again. But the first thing is you have to love what you do. And also, sometimes you have to juggle a little bit with a day job, with doing your passion, with family, with a house.
Yeah.
And it's a balance.
Yeah.
And with that balance, usually something goes a bit skewy. You're like, I'm busy writing, and the washing will go a little bit there. There's piles, and then you get the washing organized, then you're going to go like something else.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the whole house organized, get the whole house organized, and sorting out all piles of paper. But then it feels really satisfying, and it's like, but I want to write. So there's always that kind of wanting to, you want to do this, you want to do that. And I think you have to kind of work towards the balance, but also be forgiving. There's no perfection. There's no getting everything right. You might get I'll get a paragraph, or I'll get something that I've been trying to work on, and I might sit there for hours just working on this and rewriting, and it's beautiful, and it's like, oh, this is great. And then there's a pile of dishes that need to be sorted, a pile of paper, and then you get that. And that's just the way it is.
Yep.
Nothing's ever going to be perfect all the way across. And I think just learning that you know what, that tomorrow you'll sort the next thing out. Tomorrow you'll come back to your writing. Tomorrow you'll sort out whatever. And this is the way it is. And kind of be yourself.
Very nice. I lost you. You got a little bit. I heard what you're saying. It was a little bit like wah, 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 towards the end, but I got most of it. Most of it was in there. Well, that's actually very, very good advice. Now I'm just going to ask you. So I just wanted to ask you, Sarah, about just briefly. I can't imagine you've accomplished so much. You were working and writing this novel and taking care of your family and everything, and you're also a breast cancer survivor, and that also, it's just like a little blip in your day, So you were going on about getting the washing done, which we all know. And people ask me many times, "Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. How do you do it? How do you juggle it?" And I will just say completely honestly, my laundry is never done perfectly. Like that does not exist. And although I love being organized, it's like my dream. Like I look at magazines and I see things organized, and it's like, oh, I just get so excited. I just love it. But I had to give up on that a long time ago. And I realized that when it comes to the end of the days, and I should live to 120, but I'm never, ever going to regret the fact that my laundry was never perfectly folded and put away. I don't think I will. I really, I will regret having not done things, and but that I won't regret. So I am like, I hear what you're saying about that, and I'm 100% behind you. I'm there's a clean laundry basket of clothing that I go and we can take our stuff from. And my rationale is that's what Pesach and Rosh Hashanah are for. That's when I get everything organized.
I'm constantly trying to organize and have what we need and that's it. You know, not too many things. Good
Yeah.
things. There's a really famous quote. I think it's by William Morris, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. Only have that in your home which is useful or beautiful. And I think that's a quote.
Wow. I love that. Only have what is useful or beautiful. I actually love that. If you ever find the source for it, let me know, because that sums it up. That makes perfect sense. You know, if you're not using it or if you don't enjoy looking at it, then you know what's the point. So that actually brings me to a couple questions that I want to ask you. What in your house is something that you just love, just enjoy it so much that it just, whether it's something you look at, use, what do you have? What brings you joy? What's around you? What's a, you know?
Our sofa in the lounge.
I loved your answer. You were saying, I asked you what was beautiful, and you said it broke off at, you can just say the sofa in your lounge. And then what did you say?
Because it's something we built ourselves, Shmuel and I. He welded the legs, he made the base, we sewed the cover together, and it's big enough for all of us to sit on, so it's really nice.
Wow. I love that. One of the things that brings me joy in my house is actually my little gray settee over there sofa. It's like an antique that I had reupholstered several years ago, and my kids all know that's my chair. That's my sofa. I absolutely love, love, love it. And so I can understand that. And I usually sit there with my husband. It's enough for the two of us to sit next to each other. Okay, so what was your favorite subject in school?
Writing.
Writing? There you go. And of all the cities that you've lived in, which is your favorite city that you've lived in? Doesn't necessarily mean the city that you want to live in always or going back to live, but
I've really only lived in London, Modi'in. I was in Manchester for a year. I think Modi'in to live in is the best city I've lived in so far. Really got to like Texas as well. I don't know if I'd want to live there, but I love the neighborhood. I love that area.
Where was it again? What was it?
Sidewalk in Tel Aviv. Where do you see it? That area I love. It's like a second home in a sense.
Yeah.
Working there, the mornings I usually go for a walk by the sea.
Mm-hmm.
So I miss that right now.
Yeah. And you post such beautiful photos of like the quintessential architecture and the places and the windows and things. And I see that it's actually quite lovely.
I kind of like living in two cities. I like Modi'in to come back to because it's a very chilled city, and it's a nice place to live. It's really, really it's a lovely community. It's a lovely place to bring up a family.
Yeah.
And Tel Aviv has a different character. Mm-hmm. The thing that in the very desert, the area where the museum is, all Tel Aviv has its own character again.
Yeah.
And I love that blend. I go there and it's old architecture. You have history there. You have the beach. And then coming back to look at the hills and the quiet and modern. I like that blend. I don't know if I'm a really a city person, but I do love the buzz of it. Little bit.
Oh, very nice. I can see that. Very nice. Okay, what is your favorite hot drink? Really? I am shocked. They should take your passport away, your British passport. You didn't say tea? You didn't say tea? I was so sure that you were going to say tea. I'm like, I
I
love that.
rarely drink.
You don't drink tea.
Rarely. Like herbal teas and stuff. But
Yeah. We're back. Shame. I feel like so bad. I feel like I'm like torturing you slowly tonight. So here's here's another question for you. You ready? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. So we got the drink down. Okay. Facebook or Instagram?
I think maybe Facebook has the edge because it's more personal.
Yep.
But I do like the creativity of Instagram.
Yeah. Very nice. I'm a big Facebooker. I'm just starting to like cross over into the Instagram world. I'm slowly like getting my feet wet and getting in there. So I look forward to discovering the creativity that you're talking about because right now I'm like, it's just a picture and 2 words. It's just a picture and a hashtag. So anyway,
Tried Twitter?
what?
Have you tried Twitter?
I don't even have a Twitter account, okay? It's like, not that I have a problem with any of those, but it's
Yeah.
just one more thing that I have to do. That's my issue with it. One more thing that I have to check. I mean, I have something like 7 different emails for like business and work and stuff like that. And it's just like, oh, one more thing. So that's my own issue with it. So now that I'm liking Instagram a little bit more because I can post there and then have it post on Facebook. So it's sort of kind of very efficient. That I like that aspect, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So, and what else did I want to ask you? Oh, so what was the last, besides your book, what was the either the last book you read or one of your favorite, all-time favorite books?
One of the last good books I read just a few weeks ago was Americana by Drummond and Goviavici, which I love.
Wow.
Absolutely. It is a wonderful writer.
Wow. Oh, spoken like such an author, like a novelist. Yes, I love hearing that. Never read it personally, so I'll maybe add it of my list of books to get through. What keeps you sane and grounded?
Family.
Very nice. Very nice. That's
What else?
that's great. I
Reading.
mean, I think that's a blessing. That is an absolute blessing that is what can do it for you. And that's fantastic. It's beautiful. Testament to your family and to you. Normally a lot of people feel like running away from my family or going by myself or whatever it is. But no, I absolutely love that answer. Now,
When I'm at work, those morning walks by the seafront.
yeah,
That is love.
yeah. I really feel like, I mean, having watched from afar, not living it with you, but I really feel like that experience of you going to work there at that museum in that neighborhood, there was just so much that came out of that that I got to see as an outsider that you allowed us to see through your little snippets on Facebook. So I definitely see that. Like you talked about those walks and the photos that you would post of the different places of just sometimes it was just like at this angle I turned and I saw this and you know like there was one where you like rounded the corner and you saw a commercial, you took a picture of a commercial that was being filmed or something like that. So I can absolutely see that having that effect on you. Now here's another question. COVID, Corona has affected us all, work, school, everything across the board. So my question is, with COVID and its effect that it's had on the world and everyone, coming post-COVID, post-corona, what will Sarah 2.0 be like? How do you think that this you will come out of this? What positive traits, acts, something that came from this that you are grateful for, or something that you'd like to hold on to and take with you past this experience?
So I think the one thing, if I can say I've come out of something, it's actually having written this book with these stories. And that's been so great during lockdown that I forget sometimes what's going on. Like, get into this different world. That's been amazing. But in terms of things to take it on, I think, we were talking about before how only that which is useful and beautiful. I think that's a life as well. To appreciate family, good friends, the simple things. I really want to travel. I haven't traveled in a while, even before this, for a few years. And I want to travel, and I still do. But I think it's trying to find that goodness close to home, that exploring new places that are nearby. Just be appreciating just the little things in the everyday. Music, walks with friends, watching a good film, Netflix, doing something really good.
Yeah. That's a lot.
To find something in the everyday to appreciate. We're really lucky here. Also, okay, we're in winter now. We're really lucky with the weather here. We get a long summer, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a summer that extends through to November. Being able to go out. So even if we can't go that far, but we've got good weather to be able to just spend time outdoors. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And then the final question, if you could go back in time and meet any person at any point in history and spend a day with that person, who would it be, why, and what would you do?
Wow.
It's a tough one.
God, there's so many different eras and places and people. Like, for example, it was really amazing to meet my great grandparents. I never met any of them, so I think that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Someone famous.
It doesn't have to be a famous person. Could
someone famous? Maybe someone like Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Leonardo da Vinci, maybe.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Maybe someone who just was so interested in so many different things. An inventor, an artist. Maybe someone like that. I think it'd be interesting just to go to different historical time periods as well. Just if it was possible to go back to ancient Israel, just to see what life was like right back then as well.
Wow, excellent. I like that. I love it. I keep asking everybody because I don't know who I want to go and see. So that's like I just love hearing everyone's idea. Huh?
You could. Who would you want to go back and see?
I can't think of anyone that I would really want to go back and see. I love what you said about going back to a certain time period and sort of seeing how things were like in the day to day. There's so many fascinating people that I'm like respect, but there's not one person that I'm just like, oh, I really want to go. And I can't think of anyone. Like I asked a few people, their answers were like that, like boom. And I was like, whoa, they really were very definitive, but most people are like you and you're just like, wow, I don't know. So, yeah, maybe I would like to see if in, the time of the Beth Amikdash and all that stuff like that, if people were wearing socks with their sandals or pantyhose with their sandals, because I don't think they were. I'm just saying, not looking to cause trouble or like shame anyone or anything, but like really, like, no one wore socks with their sandals. We saw everybody's toes. I'm just saying, it's hot in Israel. And you can see my toes because I don't think, people back then, were hiding their toes. I don't mean to be rude, but anyway. What? I don't hear you.
Yeah, so what I think as well is that sometimes the most interesting stories are from the people of the everyday, not those who make the history, but it's the everyday people
Absolutely.
who are sometimes the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're the ones that tend to, whenever we read anything, it's like their account, like an everyday account of an everyday person that is the most impactful, I feel.
Talking of which, so I had a discussion with a couple of visitors whose families came from different places. And they raised something very interesting, though, that the history we read is obviously, I mean, because certain people wrote it down.
Yeah.
And we hear this history of famous people and so forth. What they said was really interesting, that we don't always know the full picture. Because, for example, the way women lived, they were illiterate a lot of times. So they who passed down the history and things about daily life didn't always get written down, whereas it would be the wars that would be written down, the victories, the economics.
Mm-hmm.
But the stories of everyday people
Mm-hmm.
would be passed down and sometimes get forgotten,
Yeah.
but they weren't necessarily written down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that reminds me, like I love reading old letters and old past postcards and old journals of just little nobodies. So yeah, that's actually very interesting. I love that you brought that up. It's something for me to think about. Maybe I'm like going to get a question out of this for my future interviews. But Sarah, you are absolutely, absolutely lovely person. Your family, your children, your husband, they're just so sweet. And you are super, super talented. And I love the way that you look at the world. I love your positivity. We all have our challenges and our difficulties, and you overcome anything. You just keep going forward and in a beautiful way with light and energy and empathy and kindness. And it's like those are the things that we all need to try to emulate from our friends, from people that we know, and carry forward into our day-to-day lives with everyone that we meet. And just seeing you, hanging out with you, you always have a kind word or smile or something to say that's lovely. And this was lovely. I thank you so much. And no one will see this at the very end of this edit, but like the internet, there's like a thunderstorm. It was raining earlier. There's a thunderstorm, and the internet like kept dropping like a million times. I think I counted. We're on lucky 13 right now that we lost and reconnected, lost and reconnected. So, and you, Sarah, have remained very patient and cheerful through it all. So thank you.
Pleasure. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to, I will post in the comments on the YouTube page. I will post the information, and I'll post it also here in the edit, where we could like the title of your book and when it's released. And if anyone is interested in getting it, you can definitely you have the information to look it up. And I know that you're going to do great things. And thank you very, very much. And I hope to see you again in real life, human person.
Oh, I hope so too. I've been waiting.
I hope you get to see people in your museum again. That's like the big,
Well, I don't know, because museums are one of the last things
Yeah.
open for
Yeah.
pages. They're
Yeah.
meant to be sometime in December, but who knows? I guess it'll depend now really what happens. I
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah. So I'm hoping for a vaccine to get us all back out into the world. That's like my prayer. Please, vaccine. So anyway, on that note, have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, and sending you lots of love and energy. All right. Good night. Thanks again. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe. It's the button right there on the screen. Just go ahead and hit it now.